over to Francine. Those books over there on the side are the books from our series, Studies in World Catholicism, that the center has been running with Cascade Books for a number of years. So please take a look at those. If any of you are interested in a particular title, we have some extra copies as well. So just talk to me or Karen or Marlon, and we can set it up. So thanks again for being here, Francine. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Great program, and it's going to continue to be so. I welcome our guests here in person and those who are doing this virtually, and ask you to continue to be attentive and enjoy our next presentation, which will be on the Transformation Society, enriched by our esteemed colleagues, Renato, Lima, Oliveira, Yasmine, Cajuste, and Father Franciscus, Riyanto. Each speaker will have about 20 to 25 minutes as usual, and we ask that you be mindful of that. There will be individuals in the audience who will be holding up signs to let you know when your time is about to expire. We also ask you to consider, as you listen to the presentations, 2 questions. What resonated with you or stuck with you about the presentation you're about to hear, and what questions you would like to ask the speakers. You will then have small groups after those presentations to discuss those questions and then present them later as we finish up. And so at this time, I'd like to start by introducing our first panelist, Yasmine Cajuste.
We can do it any what order you want.
Well,
She was first on the program. Are you ready?
It's just because the presentation is annoying.
Just a well-oiled machine. Yeah.
Team Vincentian. I won't go through her entire biography, but she's a native Haitian. She's been serving with the Ben Homeless Alliance Project since 2017. She's worked in numerous capacities for the Vincentian family. From 2013 to 2015, she worked as an education coordinator for the Vincentian Family Haiti Initiative, where she implemented and managed a project that provided daily hot meals in 17 schools in Port-au-Prince and Central Plateau areas. And she also helped raise the level of education through training, particularly for teachers. She's a member of the Vincentian Marian Youth. She's volunteered full-time for 8 years at the Madrid headquarters, served as an international president from 2005 to 2015. She holds a bachelor's from Cajuste University in Haiti and a master's in educational leadership from DePaul University. Please welcome Yasmine Cajuste.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm a former DePaul student. It feels like being home when I'm here. So this morning, the idea of this session, I understood, is to think about going back to our spaces, living out the charism. It's about what matters the most and how we do this transformation of society. So sadly or happily, I do not have answers about how you transform society. I only have a pathway that St. Vincent left to us, and that's what I want to speak about. So we all live in a broken world marked by injustice and inequality, war and environment disaster, racism and hatred. And as I write this word, as I say them, many of you can think and connect and see faces and see names of people you know who are experiencing one of those or many of those situations. So we live in a broken world and we are broken people. So once in a while, from time to time, or sometimes daily, we are tempted to stand before God with our hearts breaking with pain and to cry out to him, "Dear God, look at all this suffering, the anguish, the distress in our world. Why don't you help?" To which God always responds in multiple ways, saying, "I did send help. I sent you." So this simple story reminds us that the transformation of the world starts by who we are and what we do in the midst of our broken societies. For this reason, I would like to reflect on the Vincentian charism and its role in the slow and incremental transformation of society, considering in particular the importance of the encounter with those experiencing poverty. Obviously, when we're speaking about poverty, this works.
Sure.
Okay. When we speak about poverty and those experiencing poverty, the first thought we have is a situation of lack. Something is missing. Something is not given. Something is not respected. And we think about basic needs, about resources and access to food, shelter, healthcare. We think about space in the community. And this is a reality that affects millions of people in the world. And this is impacting the society that we intend as Vincentian to transform. Because the ideal is a society in which everyone has enough and have a stake and a space and a role in their community. This is what we envision as transformation of society. So in this process of understanding poverty, those who are experiencing marginalization are the most capable of bringing about real and meaningful change. So poverty can certainly, when we are in situation of social injustice and poverty, it certainly create social unrest and fuel movements for change. And this can be both positive or negative. In the negative way, it can certainly become a source of social instability and destruction. In a positive way, it can mean that people who are unable to meet their needs become frustrated, and they feel that the society we have at present in the social and economic system of the society is not allowing them to bring about the best out of them. The second thing is that the poverty can be a catalyst for innovation and creativity. And I'm sure you can think about experiences of that, of people who are in the midst of a situation of poverty, of lacking, of limited resources, who often find really innovative and new ways to solve problems, to solve their needs. And poverty can also be a stimulus for people to acquire vital skills and develop themselves properly. So when we talk about poverty, it's definitely a situation of lack, but also it's a situation of potential, of a lot of good things capable of happening if the conditions are met, circumstances are transformed, and in that case, with the support and the help of the Vincentian family. So having said that, I would like to focus my intervention, because time is limited, I'd like to focus my intervention really not on thinking about what transformation needs to happen, but what is the basic first step towards transformation of the society. And for me, this first step is encountering Christ in those experiencing poverty. And it's not invented. It's what we always say as Vincentian, right? The Vincentian family, in my opinion, in my understanding, in my experience of it, is a spirituality that is centered in that experience of encounter. And that encounter implies a double dimension. The first one that we speak a lot about, and we know what it means for us Vincentian, is the idea that we encounter Christ in the poor, but also this goes along with another dynamic, which is the experience of inner conversion. So how does that work? How does that happen? How did it happen for Vincent? When we speak on conversion, we speak of a life that becomes permeated with a new power And that makes us perceive the reality in a totally different way. It means that we are transformed, altered, and renewed in the process. Thinking of Vincent de Paul, that was really his journey. He met with this doctor immersed in temptation against faith. He met with the dying man of Gan. He met with the poor peasant of Faultville. He heard of the story of the sick family in Châtillon, just to name a few of the key experiences. And all these events shaped his path and led him to the life of story and the life and the story of service and evangelization of the marginalized that we speak about again today, 400 years later. So there's no other way for us as Vincentian. This is the path we have to follow. The Vincentian charism requires that we be attentive to the cry of the poor, that we hear them, that we respond to their needs with creativity and audacity. The Vincentian question, what must be done, starts when we experience the encounter or a series of encounters that open our eyes and our hearts to the brokenness before us. The answer begins to emerge when we understand reality differently and when our misunderstanding is transformed by the way what we hear, what we see, what we perceive from the people experiencing marginalization. When we understand that their dignity, their fundamental human dignity is a gift, and to recognize that dignity, we need to enter in a dynamic of dialogue with those that society has marginalized. St. Vincent reminds us, the poor have much to teach us. You have much to learn from them. The same sentence we heard yesterday. Because that's the way it happens, that's the way it's done. We are to enter in this dynamic of speaking to them, listening to them, journeying with them, so they can become agents of their own liberation. So in this process, we are evangelized by them, and they are our collaborators. We are inspired by their faith, their humility, their unfailing trust in God in the worst circumstances. This is the Vincentian way to action, guided by those we encounter. How we do this concretely? There are each Vincentian service, Vincentian project, Vincentian branches can tell a story, and we'll hear soon about the story of the St. Vincent de Paul Society. But from my experience and my journey and my path in the Vincentian story, I think there's a lot that relies on the power of systemic change. Because in recent years, the Vincentian family has expressed that experience of encounter and transformation and action under the concept of systemic change. And I'm not going to develop the concept because I think it's not new. I think we know about it. But what we need to understand is that under this notion, the Vincentian family recognized the interconnection among different factors. And that if we want to transform society, if we want to put an end to poverty, we need to tackle specific aspects of the system without ever losing sight of the entire system. And I think that resonates with what Sister Teresa said the other day in how the Daughters of Charity in Sub-Saharan Africa evolve in the way they're doing their work. Interestingly, the perspective of systemic change is deeply entwined for us with the experience of conversion that we mentioned above. Systemic change allows us to have a new vision of things from the perspective of those experiencing poverty. It requires that we are able to sit at the table with them, contemplate and share their joys, their life, their struggles, that we journey with them in the transformation of society. Obviously, this is more easily said than done because the commitment for social justice, the journey with the poor is full of difficulties, disappointment, misunderstanding, and failures. Yet, the growing experience of the Vincentian family practicing systemic change at different levels is confirming us in our spirituality, in enriching the service we're doing with the poor. Most importantly, the Vincentian action in the world today needs to be a contribution to society, to the transformation of society in different ways. First, the organization and individuals that are Vincentian work towards alleviating poverty and promoting social change. Secondly, we build a sense of community and solidarity among people from different backgrounds, emphasizing the importance of working together to serve and creating a sense of shared purpose and common humanity. So this is very important in a world that is so broken, so divided. This capacity of the Vincentian family to be so different in its members and its organization, but to be able to come together and work towards changing society. And the Vincentian charism also transforms society by promoting systemic change and challenging unjust structure, advocating for policies that promote human dignity and social justice. So I think this is important and we know it, but also the key thing here is that as we do those processes, the people experiencing marginalization participate in influencing public opinion and in the decision-making of our processes. So to exemplify this, I would like to speak specifically of the work I'm involved right now, which is the Family Homeless Alliance. It's a project that the Vincentian family developed in 2017, started in 2017, inspired by the Matthew 25 of welcoming, the theme of welcoming the stranger. And based on this theme, the International Vincentian family decided to focus on homelessness and to see how we could embark on a global initiative to support homeless people emerge from their homelessness everywhere in the world. So the Family Homeless Alliance pretends to be a very practical answers to people experiencing homelessness. And so that we can be on the same page, when we're speaking of homelessness, we're thinking about the street homeless, the people we see on our streets, but we're also thinking about refugees, internally displaced people, slum dwellers, because those three types of homelessness are all dire and important. Not only those we see on the streets, but those that are hidden or forgotten. We were talking yesterday about Congo, where you have thousands of internally displaced people who are living in dire conditions, but we don't see them. We can talk about Ethiopia, a war that has been going on for 2 years, killed many people, displaced so many more, and we're not talking about it. So that's what this Family Homeless Alliance is about. It has a number of different goals, like making a real and sustainable difference in the life of the homeless people, building a strong network within the Vincentian groups that address the issue of homelessness, share best research and practice, lobbying at the international level, regional and national as well, in collaboration with the UN, and developing materials to promote an understanding of homelessness. So I will speak first of the 13 Houses campaign and making the connection with what we are doing in terms of encountering and listening to the voice of the poor. The 13 Houses campaign was established with the FHA, and the goal was to transform the lives of 10,000 people within a 3 to 5 year period, starting in 2018. Ambitious goal, right? Yes. We decided this project, so we decided the idea, the concept of the project, because we were inspired by the life and experience of St. Vincent de Paul. St. Vincent de Paul was a person who attended the homelessness in multiple ways throughout his life. We can think about the abandoned children, and the name 13 Houses comes from the 13 houses that Vincent established to attend to welcome abandoned babies. We can think of his work during the war in Alsace-Lorraine and in other circumstances. And we can think about the daily feeding of homeless people for years and years in Paris. So the 13 houses come from there. And the 13 houses looks into the fact that this work that Vincent was doing was a collaboration between the sisters, the Vincentian priests and brothers, and the Laity, the Association of International Association of Charities. So that means that in the core of what St. Vincent did, first, collaboration was never accidental. It was always intentional. And secondly, he was able at his time to see homelessness from the different realities with different categories that we have now. But this was already there, and he could see it and respond to it. So how the 13 Houses campaign works, and I'm going to be very brief on that. It's local solutions through global collaboration. Local solutions, because even if we had the idea of 13 houses and we proposed the idea, the FHA has no clue of what can be done on the ground. Really, who can transform the lives of the homeless on the ground are the local Vincentian family who live with the people, who accompany them, who journey with them. So in that sense, the local Vincentian family decide in every country what they want to do exactly. So if they don't have to do 13 houses, they don't have to do housing, they don't have to do a number of people or a type of project. Each country decide what they want to do. So among the project of the 13 houses, we have projects that have no housing component, like the attention to street children in Kitale. We have projects that have about prevention, not a solution to homelessness. And we have projects that go from one family and one house to 400 units of social housing, like in the US. So the shape of the 13 Houses campaign is determined locally. And secondly, the 13 Houses doesn't look into housing as one element. It understands housing as a key element, but not the only one. So in the process of thinking about project and reviewing project, we always ask questions about education, health, job opportunity, and so on. And the answers, what additional support the family needs to walk out of homelessness, always come from the family. Sometimes a group that is presenting a project tells us, oh, we think they could certainly have 3 goats and start taking care of them, and it will provide milk and it will provide meat and they will sell. And we go to the family and the family says, oh no, actually no, there's not enough water here, the goats will not survive, we want this other activity. So really everything comes from what they hear, the Vincentian family, local Vincentian family hears from the ground. And then we work from there. But it's also a global collaboration, because we understand that local Vincentian family do not always have the capacity to transform the lives of the people. So we created a solidarity fund, and through this fund, we partly support the work of the local Vincentian family. We put people in touch from different countries so they can share the experience of doing similar projects. So this 13 Houses program is really providing an opportunity for transformation. 10,000 seems a lot. But let's keep in mind that actually looking at the 3 categories of homelessness, there is currently estimated 1.2 billion people in the world who are experiencing some form of homelessness. And to make it more concrete, it means that 1 of every 7 people in the world is experiencing some form of homelessness. Having said this, that's one of the actions. And at this point, we are close to our target, which we are expanding in the next years. The second aspect of our work that is looking into transformation of society is advocating for structural change. And here comes a bit of surprise. In all those years that the UN has existed, homelessness has never been part of the agenda. Homelessness has never been mentioned in a big forum of the UN. And thanks through the advocacy work of the Vincentian family in the recent years, in 2019, homelessness appeared as a document at the UN for the first time. And secondly, there was a commitment, agreement that each nation, member nation, would make an effort to count how many homeless people, because counting them is a first step towards transforming their reality. So I would like to finish as I started before, the importance of recognizing and counting homelessness for the example that I gave. But I would also like to go back to the experience of how the Family Homeless Alliance is helping us in this process of transformation of society. And I'm not presenting this example as the answer. I'm just presenting as an example because homelessness is a major issue in all our societies, North and South. Secondly, because it's a concrete example how the Vincentian family collaborates together, listening, studying from the people experiencing poverty. And thirdly, because I think it's very powerful that we work locally, but we're also looking the world agenda and working towards influencing that agenda. So I would like to say, as I conclude, that the Vincentian charism calls us to be fearless in our ending work to transform society. But for this transformation to happen, we need to have the courage to make room in our lives for those experiencing homelessness and poverty, to allow them to unsettle our beliefs and easy answers, to question our lifestyles, to raise their own voices, to determine our actions, and to bring about the best out of us in our organization. So only if we remain open to listening, living with, journeying with the homeless and the people experiencing poverty, will we really understand them as our Lord and Masters, and through true human encounter, build new relationships that can build a new society. We are broken people in a broken world, but we live and we work with an unfailing hope in the kingdom of God. So we keep in mind the words of St. John Paul II. We are aware of darkness and sin, of poverty and pain, but we know Jesus has conquered sin and passed through his own pain with his glory of his resurrection. So we live in the Paschal mystery, the mystery of his death and resurrection. We are an Easter people, and Alleluia is our song. And as Vincentians, we are truly who we are when we can walk and pray, saying, "Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasmine. Thank you for reminding us that transformation starts with us, and that who we are and what we are, and our most effective teachers are the poor. I would like to introduce our next speaker now, Renato Lima Oliveira. Again, his bio is on the pages that you've received, but just a little bit about him. He's the 16th International President General of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. He's also a husband, a father, and a public servant. He manages institutional relationships with Brazil's parliament, having an undergraduate degree in journalism and a master's in political science, and he's currently working on his PhD in political science through the University of Lisbon. He joined the Society of St. Vincent de Paul and at the age of 15, and since then has served as the president of his parish group, the president of the local central council, and the coordinator of communication, formation, and youth. In 2008, he became the vice president for South America, and in 2016, he was elected for his first 6-year term as the current International President General. Let us welcome, please, Renato.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As you will see, my presentation is not so theological or theoretical. I will show to you some practical examples about what we are doing in the countries that we are established. My Portuguese is fantastic. My Spanish is 50%. My English is not so good. So my vocabulary is not so big in English. So I hope you understand my mistakes, that obviously I will commit lots of mistakes in English. I have no formal speech. I like to do more informal. And we will talk about the 190 years of love, empathy, and love and hope for those in need. That is our society. Not tomorrow, but next Sunday, we will be celebrating 190th anniversary of Society of Saint Vincent de Paul in Paris, in a Holy Mass, a special Holy Mass. We will broadcast this Holy Mass through Osana TV on Facebook. You can accompany us there in Paris. It's a remarkable date for our society. And very interesting because that 7 founders in Paris, and now we have a huge army of charity working in many countries. This is the invitation from the Paul, equal like Yasmine. We don't have answers to all these questions, but I think when we are testimonies of what we are doing. When we go to the poor, we are showing to the world how to reduce poverty, how to be more kind, how to be more gentle, how to spread generosity, how to spread love among us. So sometimes it's better to be your example. You are the example to do this, to reform the church. If you want to reform the church like St. Francis of Assisi or St. Vincent de Paul, you first must be member of the church and reform internally the church. And with your examples, with your actions, you will reform the church. This is one of possible answers, how to reform the church. Let's start with John Paul II, Saint John Paul II. In 2001, in a Vincentian, SSBP Vincentian International Gathering in Rome, he said this: we need to employ a new imagination of charity, and a new imagination to practice the charity in 2001. And this sentence was for me very interesting because I started to think about what kind of charity we are doing in our countries. We have our founders in 1833, Blessed Frédéric Ozanam, Bailly de Soucy, Lamache, Lallier, Devaux, Clavet, L'Étalandier, the 7 together. Paris that time, France that time, faced lots of crises, economical, social, religious, and the basics about food, about everything they need in Paris. So they started the charity, as I say, charity 1.0, the basic charity. And now we are living different times and new poverties. And what I defend is charity 2.0, a different kind of charity, bigger than the basics. In many countries, we are in 1.0. In other countries, we can move to 2.0. In our society, in these 190 years, we are in 153 territories. Next week, I will be announcing the entrance of Slovenia in our society. 48,000 conference groups, Catholic groups. We say conference, but it's not a conference like this. We use this word, it's very complicated to understand, especially for the youth. But we call Vincentian conferences. 800,000 active members, plus 1.5 million of volunteers. The volunteers are different from the members. The members go to the meeting, go to the home visit, etc., etc. And the volunteers, sometimes on Christmas or in special days, they join us to make some campaigns, etc. So we put these two categories of members. 30 million people assisted every day in one part of the globe, or in the home visits, or in our special works, daycare centers, elderly houses, etc. Lots of works we have. We belong to ECOSOC at the United Nations. We belong to the Vincentian coalition in the United Nations. We work together. We are the biggest branch of the Vincentian family, and we belong to 3 dicasteries at the church. We have a fixed place in 3 dicasteries at the Vatican, at the Holy See. And we have a board, international board, very complicated, lots of boxes, but all this board is, this board was created, or this organigram was created to serve better the countries that belong to our society. And the more and the better we serve the countries that belong to our confederation, the better we are doing a job to the poor. It's a network of charity. In our strategic planning, we have the mission, the vision, the values, but the most important is in these 10 strategic points, we have 3 only about to spread solidarity, to spread fraternity in the world. Twinning, solidarity, and global aid. And to develop these 3 points, we have 4 departments in our International Council. CIAD, Commission for International Aid and Development, FIS, Fund for International Solidarity, Twinning, and Strategy 25. Strategy 25 is a list of 25 the poorest countries in the world that we are now focusing our donations to send money, to send help to these countries. We have here 20 countries in Africa, and the other 5, like Venezuela, Nicaragua, Haiti, is in the list of this possible. We are suggesting the countries to send or to concentrate their donations in this project. And we work together with the Vincentian family and the United Nations in this project of systemic change, because if you get a job, if you have a higher education, you can overcome the lack, as you said, lack of lots of things you don't have. So we do believe in this systemic change approach, and the most challenge for us is to convince or to show to our conference to adopt this perspective when we are doing charity. The traditional charity, as I said to you, 1.0, to give food, to give medicines, to give clothes to the people. But after this slide, I will show to you 10 or 12 examples in different parts of the world about charity 2.0, okay? Some examples in the United States, in Dominican Republic, in Brazil, in Africa, in Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, India, Lebanon, etc. You will see about, and most of these projects and most of these pictures I have visited. I saw with my own eyes, and when I come back to Brazil, I feel, when I talk to myself, I am nothing. I do nothing, because these people are doing much more than me. I have to do it better. For example, in Australia, we have this project called Youth Reach Center. I visited around Sydney. What's the purpose of this project? The students, when they are studying, for example, in the morning at the school, and in the afternoon, in the alternative time, they can go to this center and they receive they can practice music, they can have class about gastronomy, sushi, lots of, to do the homeworks. They can do the useful things for them in the future. So they are being prepared for the market. They're being prepared to be citizens. So this is 2.0 charity. We are not giving food to these people. We're not giving clothes or medicines to these people. We are offering to the youth people opportunities to learn different things to be useful for them. I loved this project in Australia. In Brazil, I put here 2 projects. This solidarity shower belongs to Alliance, because it's for homeless, but not only to give shower to these poor people. Together with this initiative, the Vincentians try to help these people to stay away of this situation. Why are they homeless? Where are their families? Why they are in this situation? So together with this marketing or this vision, we work together with them to try to identify the causes of their homelessness. It's very interesting. We have now in Brazil 4 or 5 in different cities. Brazil is a continent like United States. We have new activities, initiatives like this in Brazil. I like too much this because it's not only to give good shower and hygiene to these people to clean, but there is more behind this project. This is another very good project in Brazil, Network of Affection. It's a psychological program that we, as SVP, we are doing in Brazil, not only for members, brothers and sisters of our society, but for our friends in need. So, because not only because of the pandemic, but after pandemic, this program grows a lot. So we have a network. We have more than 20 psychologists available to serve the members of the society and the poor people we assisted through the internet. So it's totally, this is charity. And in Lebanon, our conference is preparing our friends in need to cook and to offer them this food, including for the airports, gastronomy gathering in airports. So these people they are not anymore assisted people. They are entrepreneurs. They are working, and they can overcome their situation. I visited this project in Lebanon. It's a remarkable project. In India, this is another project very interesting because in Kerala, they used to plant this black tea, and when they used to go to sell the products, the tea, people used to buy paying small money. And because of the intervention of our society, we create a cooperative, and they are producing with more professionalism, and they are selling the product with a good price, a balanced price, not so small price. So they have a new good income, more income for them. Excellent project in partnership between Belgium and India. In Dominican Republic, I guess Yasmine knows this project. We have a rice farm in Dominican Republic, and these people are producing the rice and selling the rice. Now they have new equipment. This farm is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now these people get a job. They have dignity in their lives. So not only giving rice to them to eat, but now they can sell rice to us to eat. In France, about loneliness, this project is fantastic in France, in Paris, because we have in Paris some assisted people, most of them widows. They have, these ladies, they have money. They can go to the markets and buy food for them, but they have nobody to talk. So they stay all the days without anybody. So in the Vincentians go to their house, talk to them, stay one morning, one afternoon. The Vincentians go to the market and buy the food for them. It's different, totally different. Because the most important is not the material things, the goods they are buying, but the most important is to talk, to stay together with them. This is charity. This is charity. In Monaco, I visited this charity night patrol. It's very interesting because it's not only to give coffee or soup for the refugees and for the homeless. Behind this, our brothers and sisters, they talk to these people from Morocco, from Syria, from Ukraine, from Lebanon, from Latin America, and even from France, because in Monaco, there is a frontier with France, and in Monaco, there is no poor people, but around Monaco, we have migrants, and I visited this patrol. More than 30 people at night. We can talk and we can feel their histories and feel their suffering, as we talked yesterday about suffering. So this project is very interesting, and we are trying these people to come back to their countries and to give more dignity to them. Charity Night Patrol. In the United States, I have visited the United States more than 15 times. Lots of cities. Our society is very strong here in the United States. I'm a big fan of SSVP here in the United States. But I separate for you two projects here. One in Florida about the veterans. We have a housing project, but not only to give affordable housing for these people, but much more, health assistance, psychological assistance. So I became very happy when I saw this project in Florida, when I visited Tampa and St. Petersburg, etc. And in Phoenix, we have this campus of charity that I called a machine of charity. I use this word, machine of charity, because in this campus, the poor, our friends in need, they receive a complete assistance, since from the basics to the psychological. They have everything, lots of services provided in the same building for these people. It's a dream. In Brazil, it's a dream to have this kind of building to offer all the kinds of charity to these people. So congratulations to our brothers and sisters in Phoenix. In Malaysia, I visited this project, Second Chance. What is Second Chance? These people are former inmates, ex-prisoners, former prisoners. In their culture, if you are a former prisoner, you are nothing. You don't have family, job, nothing in their culture. So it's very difficult to them to be reconnected to their families and etc. So in this house, we offer for them for 1 year in Kuala Lumpur, we offer for them dignity, housing, food, shower, and we try to get a job for them and to reconnect them to their families. Because if you are a former inmate in their culture, your family abandon you totally. So the Vincentian is making this bridge between this situation and the family. And they, of course, authorized this picture for me. In Burkina Faso, one of the poorest countries in the world, but in Burkina Faso, there are lots of bicycles and motorcycles. And our conferences in Burkina Faso, our conferences are working to teach to the young people how to fix bicycles and motorcycles. Because if you have a small number of vehicles, but big number of bicycles and motorcycles, you get a job for your life, entire life. Because if you know how to fix these bicycles and motorcycles. So in Africa, sometimes we do miracles without money. I visited lots of conferences, Vincentian conferences in Africa, and zero money in their treasury area. But they have initiative, creativity, innovative to do the charity. In Spain, they have the National Council offer this juridical and legal support for migrants, not only for Latin America, but nowadays more for people from Middle East. So SSVP there is offering to regularize the documents, to help these people, because we had lots of bureaucracy in these papers. So society is helping people to be to get a green card or equivalent of green card for in Spain, to work, to have a house. So this is totally charity. Most of our conferences, we don't have this vision. We don't have this dimension. We sometimes are only worried about food and medicines and clothes, but this is truly charity. In Singapore, they have this project for the poor mothers, because in Singapore it's very expensive. Milk and can of milk in can, and the diapers, and we do this, but we don't only give this material for the mothers, for the poor mothers. We have a meeting, we gather these people, we talk to them, we do evangelization. So there is something behind this project in Singapore. So this is a little vision, what we are doing in this 2.0 kind of charity. And that's why I wanted to share this experience to you. Thank you. And sorry for my not good fluency in English.
Thank you, Renato. Learned a lot about our Vincentian family tree. It's like ancestry. So many things. I've gone online and looked, but I would never have found all of this. So again, thank you so much. Our final speaker for our panel this morning is Father Franciscus Armada Riyanto. He's an Indonesian Vincentian priest and professor of philosophy at Widya Sasana School of Philosophy and Theology in Milan. He served as president there since 2016. He also lectures at several universities. He's chaired the Indonesian Catholic Philosophers, formed by the Indonesian Bishops' Conference since 2018. And he has also chaired the Association of Catholic Higher Education in Philosophy and Theology in Indonesia. From 2010 to 2016, he served on the Vincentians International Commission of Interreligious Dialogue. He's actively participated in and promoted interreligious dialogue in Indonesia, speaking on the issue of peaceful coexistence. He's written in several areas, particularly in philosophy and theology and interreligious dialogue, and he humbly offers pastoral assistance to a small community at the St. Vincent de Paul parish on the outskirts of Milan. We welcome Father Franciscus Riyanto.
So good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, let me first introduce myself. That was missing. You know, I'm a Vincentian priest. I was ordained in 1993. So this year, actually, it's already 30 years of my priesthood. And during those years, I work always in the seminary, in a major seminary. So basically, I work in formation. My understanding of formation is that this sort of work is the work that you cannot be proud of. The formation actually is somehow like, I would say that this is not difficult, but somehow like sometimes this formation bring us to the dark in the sense that it seems to me that we work well already in the formation, but you know, sometimes we got also difficulty in the sense that those who reach the ordination, oftentimes also they still need prayer. So I would say that the formation is a work of prayer, actually, first of all. It's not work of the expertise, of the expertise, but work of prayer. And work of hope as well. Because just like Pope Francis told us, to the rectors and seminarians of the Latin America last year in, I think in 10th October, something in Rome, he says that the formation, the work of formation is in the heart of evangelization. And so that means then the formation is indeed important. Important, but we cannot be proud of the products of the formation. So let me begin with the understanding that the work that I am is in this number 3 of the purpose of the Congregation of the Mission, to help the clergy and laity in their formation and lead them to a fuller participation in the evangelization of the poor. And in the context of Indonesia, it is indeed, I would say, still important, vital, until today. The transformation of society needs a good education for priests and lay people. Saint Vincent de Paul does not develop a doctrine of the priesthood of the clergy. He concentrates on showing priests the practical and actual demands of their priesthood and helping them to live this out. So that means then, if I interpret this sort of the quotation of St. Vincent de Paul, actually formation of priesthood should be centered, should be Christ-centered, just like Christ himself. If I already asked, what did you come on earth to do? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has consecrated me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the poor, and he continues the quotation, the lame walk, the poor, etc. And this text is being fulfilled today, even you are listening, which is the proper definition of a homily. I think this is the difficult part, or the crucial part of formation of the clergy, that the priesthood, how do you call that, practice what they say in the homily. So what we are doing as the Vincentians in Indonesia, well, I make a list just to let you know the institutions that in which we are working. Saint John Maria Vianney, etc. And I'm working in number 4, which is a Sana School of Philosophy and Theology at Marillac. And number 7 and 8, they are the higher education for the catechesis. And number 8 is for the pastoral worker, I would say pastoral theology. Those institutions form a lot of catechesis as well as the teacher of religions in Indonesia. And these 2 institutions were founded by Vincentian Paul Jansen. We will see who he was. And this is the visit of Nuncio Archbishop Piero Piocco to our Vidya Sasana School of Philosophy and Theology in 2019. So you can feel the vibes of the, what you call it, the priestly formation or the formation of the clergy in our school. Our school is not the only one because we have in Indonesia 12 major seminaries, and Vidya Sasana is one of them, but got a good number of students, about more than 500 students from 1/3 dioceses of Indonesia and about 9 or 10 religious congregations. They send their candidates to this major seminary, which was initiated by the Vincentians and the Carmelites in 1971. Now we will find out. This is the beginning of our school. It was modest start of Vidya Sasana, you know. Even the class was not in the room because we didn't have room. So that's in the parking area with a tin shelling. So it was very noisy when the rain comes at that time. Well, thanks to the FABC, the Federation of Asian Bishop Conferences, because when I delivered the final, let's say, documents of the Synodal Church, they put as priorities of formation. So that means that the formation is really in the heart of the bishops of the Catholics in Asia, as well as in Indonesia. The formation of the seminarians, priests, bishops, etc., and also the laity. So for those who do not know Indonesia, that's Indonesia. Eh? It looks like tiny, small, but it's big. Because if you fly from the east to the west, it would take about 6 hours. So it's a big deal. And I'm living here in Marillac. So this is in Java. Well, I'll show you the map because Indonesia is basically a land surrounded by the so-called fire area, because there is plates and also this and hundreds volcanoes. Not volcanoes in the sense of the mountains, but also volcanoes in the bottom of the sea. And that means, sorry. Okay. And that means that if something happened, then it creates easily tsunami, etc. So that's, and then we need to understand this context simply because when you have a formation, you need also suggest something that the seminarians or the students, they would have somehow a capacity to deliver solidarity to those who are in need, especially during the natural calamities. So this is again the context. I just make sure that Indonesia is an archipelago with more than 17 islands, 17,000 islands. So it's a lot. And 300 ethnic groups with over 700 languages. We don't speak English. We don't speak English. I speak English only in United States and also in the airplane. So imagine if a lot of Indonesians, they don't go abroad and they don't speak English. That's why, I guess you understand my English, why it sounds strange. Anyway, it's okay. And the Catholics are only 3%. Oops. Have I missed me? No, okay. Good, thank you. It's only 3% of population. But thanks to God, thanks to the missionaries that inherited us, let's say, works of education and health service and social works, etc. So basically, we have a significant, let's say, presence in Indonesia. And this one, despite the minority, the Catholic Church of Indonesia continues to send about 1,500 missionaries. So more or less about 30 Indonesians are working in Brazil as missionaries, and also in Argentina, in Peru, in the United States, even in Siberia. Imagine, we are in tropical countries, but I met a couple of them working in Siberia, just to break. This is the so-called the strong, let's say, energy of the Catholic Indonesian Catholics. This is important. I just grappled the 3 points as a context. Of course, there are a lot of things that we can discuss. So the first of all is the interreligious dialogue. Interreligious dialogue. I think somebody asked me that interreligious dialogue is important for Indonesia, for the Catholic Church in Indonesia, because the Catholics are minority. That's not the reason. The reason is that interreligious dialogue is indeed at the heart of, let's say, creating the peaceful living together. And we need this. And the second is about Pancasila, and I would say cultural identity. Pancasila is basically basic principles of the state. Panca means 5. Sila means principle. They are belief in God, humanity, unity of Indonesia, democracy, and social justice. So those things, the principles that guide us to live together as an Indonesians. And usually, I would say, despite weaknesses and also shortcomings and everything can happen, tension, conflict, etc. Indonesians are proud of this Pancasila. And the Catholics have done something to contribute the philosophical discussion of this Pancasila. I myself, I did also a book on this Pancasila. And then the problem of poverty, of course, we have 9.78% of the populations, and approximately to 25 million plus, or even 26 million, live below poverty. And this is a picture that just we have, we have also this the so-called interreligious dialogue. This is in the lobby of our schools, and we invited Muslims, and the leader, they gave a homily, something like that. And then after this, we can eat together. This is in the occasion of the breaking fast in the month of Ramadan. They sit like this. Sitting is not just a position. Sitting is an art of having dialogue and an art of listening. That is kind of the so-called symbolic attitude of ours in Indonesia. Also, I think in the final documents of the Synodal Church, the bishop mentioned about taking off shoes. Taking off shoes is a sign of not just that we take off our shoes, but it is also a sign of humility, of paying respect. So those things are indeed important also for the, let's say, the formation of the clergy. This one is. This is the president, the ex-president Abdurrahman Wahid. Is one of the prominent leaders of Muslims in Indonesia that called Nahdlatul Ulama. So basically, you got understanding that the formation of the clergy as well as the laity, you need to go around the context of Indonesia, diverse context, I would say, culturally speaking. And this is just a little information which is not important. I would say that the Widya Sasana School also get an alumni, 6 bishops, and then 2 general leaders of religious orders, 7 working as a general assistants in the religious orders, and more than 15 provincials of religious congregation, 100 missionaries. I would say 100, no 1,000, but hopefully it will be 1,000. And this, the meaning of outward facing church in the context of Indonesia is that, first of all, that means being respectful and sensitive and open to the cultural and religious diversity. And second is engaging with the communities through social programs that address the needs of the most vulnerable and marginalized members of society. This is our experience as well when we got, let's say, the victims of the conflicts of the tribes. What we did is that of course, we deliver some helps, but we could not do it by ourselves. We need to work together with a Muslim organization, etc. So this is the things that we have to address in the formation. The Vincentians in Indonesia, just a brief, 800, the Dutch missionaries restored the Catholic mission in Indonesia after it was banned by the so-called VOC, the United East Indies Company, for 200 years, along with the defeat of Portuguese fortification in Ambon at the beginning. So basically, Indonesian church is new, it's young, I would say. And then 1923, the first arrival of the Vincentians in Indonesia. And this 1960 establishment of the institution of the lay formation of catechists in Kediri and then Madiun. And 1971, I think the discussion began with the so-called Second Vatican Council documents called Optatam Totius. You know, Optatam Totius encouraged the religious congregations as well as dioceses to work together, to merge. Before the Vincentians got, let's say, an institution of formation for their own candidates, but after the Second Vatican Council, everybody should work together. So this is also the capacity that should be there in the seminarians. And this thing is not important. This is maybe aims of forming candidates. It's to be men of dialogue, to be missionary, to be person of God, servant leader for the church and rural societies. Because, you know, in Indonesia, being priest is still respected by the societies, by the Muslims as well as other religious adherents. And then, challenges. Challenges, I guess, is already that navigating complex religious and cultural differences is one of the difficult things that we need to deal with, and also avoiding exclusivist or triumphalist perspective. Actually, I got a little experience that, but maybe later I would like to say that, because when the Muslims invited me to deliver talk like this properly in the mosque, there was a question. Father Armada, they called me Father Armada. You look good. You look generous. But unfortunately, because you are Christian, you are Catholic, so you will go to hell. Yes, what's your name? His name, for instance, is Abdullah. Abdullah, you look good, handsome, generous. But I'm so sorry, because according to our community as well, that's true, because some Protestant would also think more or less a similar thing, that you will go to hell as well. So we will go to hell. Let's collaborate to make the hell better. This kind of, little experience completely happened. Anyway, so this thing I think you know already. Now, the formation of the laity. This is serious things that we are working in the two institutions, that Academic of Catechesis of Indonesia in Madiun and Pastoral Institutes. And those things are non-academic. We accompany SSVP, Ladies of Charity, Association of Miraculous Medal, etc., etc. And this guy, his name is Paul Jansen, is the man who initiated all the, let's say, of course, with the collaborators, with the lay collaborators, with the conference. But this guy, this man, he died 4 or 5 years ago, is the man who initiated. And this is a handicapped child, no? He founded Alma, the association, let's say something religious, but this is secular. This secular do, how to call that, service to this handicapped child. And the members now more than 400. So that's a lot. That's a good deal. This is Paul Jansen. That's what I do. And the Academy Catechetic, the Indonesian Catechetical Academy at Madiun is also very active in producing, let's say, the lay apostolates, the lay apostles to preach the gospel in the remote places, etc., etc. And this Paul Jansen received the medal of the exemplary citizen from the president of Sudan. So that means that he did a very good job. This is again the challenges of formation of the laity in Indonesia, about the cultural diversity, which is sometimes also creates, let's say, the tensions. And we also have limited resources. That's why we work hard. And then the social and political conflicts, especially before the general election. And next year we have general election. So that means that this year we deal with this political and social conflicts as usual. This is the last contribution of the Vincentians, what more to be done. And the first is to provide formation that integrates spiritual, intellectual, pastoral, and human development, to promote sense of mission emphasizing the importance of evangelization, especially to the poor, handicapped, and marginalized, and etc. And the 7 is to encourage priests and lay people to be active and engaged, members of their local communities, and to collaborate with other organizations and institutions to promote social justice and peace.
Well, thank you, Father. At this time, now, the 2 questions I'll remind you are, what resonated with you or stuck with you on the speaker presentations? And then what questions would you like to ask the speakers? We're going to form into small groups now for about 5 to 7 minutes and think about the questions and anything else you'd like to share that you think the rest of our community would like to hear.
I have one question. I have one question for you. Online information. Because we talk about faith. The improvement in online. Nice, it is He's coming to next time. He's one of our I'm totally for that. Yeah, I guess that I thought he was coming. He was coming in the fall. And he says he's coming in 3 weeks' time. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to check with Marlon.
I think I've just been stopped by everyone.
She.
He did.
You start to wrap up the small group discussion. Thank you.
Okay, at this time,
Yes, indeed.
if I can have your attention. At this time, we're going to take questions that you have for our panelists, both here and for our audience on Zoom. We'll start here with our audience in person. Any questions? What resonated with you? No.
Okay, so I'm going to channel Mike Buddy's question from yesterday again. Mike Buddy said, how can you have a panel where you talk about poverty without talking about capitalism? And so I'm going to pose the same question to you all. How can you have a panel on systemic change and the transformation of society without talking about the system that needs changing? And I was just saying in my group, I feel of 2 minds about this, because on the one hand, I sort of agree with Mike that you've got to kind of talk about these big systems that are keeping people down. But on the other hand, you know, I'm thinking about Yasmine, your presentation, and if you ask people, you know, people are going to say, we want chickens, not goats. They're not going to say we want to transform the global capitalist system or something like that, right? So the needs are much more practical and on the ground. And so I'm just wondering if all 3 of you could address that question. How do you think about those? I mean, most of you are kind of focused on those direct needs of people, and your emphasis is on going to people and asking them what they need. How do you, or do you, think about the broad systemic issues that are keeping people in poverty? Does that enter into your work? Do you ever step back and look at it from that direction? How might your work be different, or would it not be different at all if you did that kind of analysis? If you would, all 3 of you address that, I'd be interested.
Bill, I do agree with you. If you see my examples, no matter if the country is capitalism, is socialism, no matter if the country is poor or rich, like Monaco, and what we are not worried about far left or far right. We are worried about extreme poverty. But we are working to face this challenge, no matter the culture is, the country is, the systemic, economic or political system we have in that countries. So our society, our conference, we work, although we have different scenarios in all the countries.
I've been thinking about the question since yesterday, right? Because there are a few thoughts I'd like to share, and they are not maybe scientific enough, but they resonate with my experience of living in a country that is being destroyed by violence, and a violence that's being created from inside and from outside. And when I think about the capitalism or the bigger issues that influence and that causes and that maintain people in poverty, there's a sense of powerlessness. There's a sense of this is too big for us. This is too big for me as an individual in the span time of my life to significantly transform the entire world into something else. There's this aspect of it. But it's not a powerlessness that is paralyzing. I think it just brings me to really asking me the question of where I am in the life that I am, where I'm finding myself. What can I do differently? What can I do? What can I be to be to make a difference in the lives of others? So that's maybe a first step of answer to those big questions. Because answering them globally, I don't have the answer. That's a first element. I think the second element I would say is that we often think, and it's normal, we often think that capitalism is what our world is about. And I think our world is about people and community. And how, as people and community, we build our world today has the form of capitalism, but tomorrow we'll have another form. So in my opinion, humble opinion, I would say, because I'm not a specialist, I don't think capitalism has a long time to go. Personally, I think capitalism has showed its limits with the abuse of the resources of Earth. That shows its limit in its capacity to build society and communities. So from its own situation, its own principles, capitalism is called to fall at some point. Will I see it in my lifetime? Will my kids see it in the future? But it has to fall. It cannot continue. Because I think the principle is that capitalism is abusing the resources in a way that is not sustainable. So it has to change, or we all die. It's one or the other. So I think sometimes I can understand from an academic point of view or from a political point of view, those questions are important. But I think when we think about our individual experience, human experience, or our experience in our communities, families, or organizations as Vincentians, the time we can dedicate to reflecting on those questions doesn't bring answers to the people who are living today. It's important to do it, but it cannot be the main thing that we do on one side. The two last points I would like to mention is the first one. I think the real question is about our families and communities. And I'm mentioning it because maybe that's an aspect that we've not discussed enough during this conference, because for whatever reason. But it's true that when you think about any political system, the real question is, what does it do to the individual, to the family, and to the community? And that's really the criteria where you judge the value or inappropriateness of a specific system. So when you ask yourself what capitalism is doing to our families and communities, again, the answer is something that is not leading to more human life, so something that is called to change. And then the last point I would like to mention is when we speak of advocacy. Advocacy, obviously, I spoke briefly about what the FHA and its partners at the UN does with IGH, what we do in terms of advocacy to change the structures, because we need to work at that level. But at the same time, whatever change has to happen at that level needs to come from the voices that we hear on the ground. So how we make this connection between the ground and the global level and the UN, the EU, or the global forums is essential to bring about change. And if this change is about capitalism or specific form of politics of government, to me, at some point, I can say that's secondary, because those forms of doing things are different. What remains is the human being, the family structure, and the community where the person can strive.
In the case of Indonesia, I would say capitalism is a big thing. It's a big problem as well. Well, unfortunately, it's concrete. For instance, Freeport company. Freeport is an American company. This company is doing the so-called gold mining in Papua. But what happened then, the natives, those people from Papua, because of the company, they have to go away from, they are displaced from their own land. So the capitalism indeed affects, let's say, sufferings of the people, especially the indigenous, the natives of that regions. Not mention about those people live in Kalimantan, in the Dayak people. One of the Dayak is with us, Ferry, and that's a huge land. They got the so-called palm olive plantings, and that create destruction of the land, and that somehow, let's say, squeeze the land, the home of the Dayak people. So this is big things, and unfortunately, it's concretely affected to the sufferings of the Indonesians. I would say, who am I? Who are we? Even Karl Marx, altogether with the communists, they can't fight against capitalism, I would say. They can't defeat the capitalism. But anyway, I agree with the presentation of Renato, as well as the Yasmine, that we need to do something concretely what we are facing now. And I think, well, I would say gradually we will do something. We can change something. We can transform the lives of the people. If not the whole system, but the people that we are dealing with.
So sorry, my name is Pamela. I'm with the society. Sorry. I just want to maybe further comment that we had been discussing this and more, for me, a disagreement. And I come from the school of frustrated inaction, because I feel that in the many ways that we work, we are hearing what those on the fringes are saying, right? But we seem to tend to keep it to ourselves. And adding to what you're saying about the power of capitalism, right? Power is held somewhere. And there is those that are suffering and those that have the power. And somehow we need to find a way to unify these two groups so that something can be done. We can't wait for generations that something will happen, because we're here now, and ours is to do something. So that's just my comment. I know that I'm part of the Vincentian family, North America social justice, and we talk about these things a lot. We are frustrated that it seems like it's going nowhere. But I think that what we hear, we need to take somewhere. We need to take maybe from the perspective of our own family and friends. How do we tell them the work that we're seeing, which is the whole point of advocacy? It's not necessarily just the listening. From a synodal perspective, we've heard, then what?
So, good morning. So I have a question, but I want to make a comment before. It's very easy to say all about capitalism. Whatever my own point of view is, and I'm not going to explain it, I just want to share that you can make a very strong argument that the massive reduction that we are seeing in poverty in the world is thanks to capitalism, right? But I don't think that the discussion at that level is actually very useful, because I think the question of power that you mentioned is much more important than the question of capitalism for socialism versus something else, right? But I just want to say, for the sake of the argument, that I would know many people who would say capitalism has been great for the poor. You may not agree, I may not agree, but you can make that strong argument. Now, I want to go to my question, right, which relates a little bit to, so what do we do, what can we do, right? You're doing a lot of great work with SSBP, and you mentioned the work in Laity and in Indonesia and so on. What will interest me from the specific point of life where I am, for example, with the UN, is, can you give me a concrete example where the advocacy effort, or what you have learned from all of your outstanding work on the ground, actually has been presented in international fora, or to a local government or an international government of the country, and actually has made a difference, right? Because to me, what I would love to see, and I think what actually is sometimes missing, right, is learning from the experience of all the projects that you do on the ground, but then writing it up and explaining it up in such a way that it can actually be picked up by people who have the power and the resources, right? And let me just be very concrete. I don't know what the budget of SSBP is, right? Of all the actions that you do, and maybe it might be interesting to actually cost the volunteer work and put a value to that. But this is going to be extremely small versus what is going on, right? And when the World Bank will make a loan of $500 million to Nigeria, right? So to me, a key thing that you have to do is find a way to express what you learn from your projects in a way that can be, between quote, consumed by that power structure, and then change something on the ground. And if you have practical examples of how you have done that and it has succeeded, it would be great to learn. And if you don't have examples of that, what I would like to understand is, what are the constraints that prevent you from doing that? Thank you.
Would they like to address that?
And I'll consider that we're talking in family, and if we have our audience that is open and whoever can hear what I'm saying.
We also have virtual people.
Exactly, that's why I said my virtual audience is also listening. I think when you're talking about concrete example of what we're doing, I was limited in time and couldn't elaborate much of that. But just the fact that in all those years at the UN, homelessness is finally at the table, is part of the discussion, is required that the Secretary General reports on data around homelessness. It's a significant amount of work. IGH has been created before FHA, and they've been behind this work. So it took 7-8 years of serious action, lobbying, conversation in the UN circles to get there. And if any of you have any idea how the UN works, you know what I'm talking about. So it's a concrete example of I was trying also to make the point that the SDG all have a connection with homelessness. So it's hard to understand how they missed the point in that case. So just being able to work towards our hope, our work is directed towards that in the next set of sustainable development goals, homelessness be explicit there, so that we can push even more the agenda on that. So I think it's a meaningful example of how the work of the Vincentian family, in this case at the UN, has allowed for some urgent issue affecting the most marginalized to be on the global agenda. And I think that's very powerful. That's an amazing story to tell. That's a concrete example. Now, if you want to go on another level, we through the 13 Houses Project, but not thanks to the 13 Houses Project, and this is very different, we've had access to a number of specific stories in which the Vincentian family is, in its work with the marginalized, with the homeless in that case, are really breaking ground in their own country or in their own region. And sometimes it's very little action from a global perspective, but from a local perspective, it's a huge difference. And I won't elaborate on that for the sake of time. So I do think that this advocacy work that we're doing, it's a slow process. It's slower than building a house for people, but it is a process that when you do it and you persevere in this conversation, allowing the marginalized to speak for themselves, it does have an impact. And it's a little bit what we said yesterday about the church. We would like to see the results and be able to lay out how it happened, but sometimes there are a bunch of parameters we cannot control, and we just navigate to get where we want, the pool wants us to be. That's one element I would like to say. And I think the other element around the concrete results is that we do what we can within our limits, but I also think that oftentimes as a Vincentian family, we can push the limits of what we can. And that's the entire journey we're in on one side. On the other side, my dear Vincentian family is also a Vincentian family that at times have not understood very well the importance of this advocacy work. I'll give a simple example, again, related to homelessness. When we started the FHA, one of our key objectives was to do a mapping of all the work of homelessness that the Vincentian family is doing globally. And the intention was that if we have this database saying, okay, we're investing that amount of $1 million a year in homelessness, we are that many people working in homelessness, we have those many projects in those many countries addressing homelessness, then we become a force to speak out with and create a space for speaking out. Well, a certain understanding of humility is preventing the Vincentian family from having a clear map of all the things that we're doing. I said a certain understanding of humility. Because Vincent himself didn't have any pain when he was doing all the efforts for the war victims of publishing regularly how much money was given, to whom it was given, and how it was given. But we've come to a certain understanding that keeps us from sharing our information for a number of reasons that I cannot elaborate on right now. But so there's, on our one side, we have experiences showing that when we push and when we speak out, people start listening. But on the other side, we also have a cultural resistance to sharing information that is impacting negatively the influence we can have in certain forums or in changing policies. So we are navigating those attempts, and we're navigating our own limits as Vincentians. And in this process, I think we're taking small steps along the way.
I would suggest if either of you would like to comment, we take your comments, but then go to a question if there are any. Okay.
Just brief comment. What I'm afraid of is that I'm not capable to explain clearly the things that we did there. So my little suggestion is just go there and see and learn something in the practice that we do in Indonesia.
While you were elaborating your comment and your questions, I was wondering about Blessed Frederico Zanan, because Frederico Zanan had the same words like you, for example, not only to identify the consequences of the poverty, but indeed to try to identify the causes of the poverty. And I have one good example, concrete example, to share with you about a good relationship, institutional relationship that we have in Australia between our society and the parliament. We have in the National Congress of Australia one brother of our society responsible for this relationship. And the new law, the new bills that the government is approving, they used to ask us our opinion, because we have this perspective about the poor. So we say that if this law is good or not, especially for the poor. So I use this example when I am in international meetings. I try to convince all the countries that belong to our confederation to adopt the same system in your countries, to have this someone in charge or someone like a parliamentary advisor to talk with the representatives, to talk with the senators, to talk with the governmental authorities, to try to talk about because if we say that we are the voice of the voiceless, because we say this, sometimes it's a beautiful speech. It's a beautiful speech. In Vincentian family, we have lots of beautiful speech, but you have to concrete this or convert this speech in real actions.
This has been a great discussion, but and you've brought up Ozanam. I think that one of the things that Ozanam realized was there was a problem with the educational system. And I think we don't realize that part of the problem, there isn't this thing, capitalism, that's alive and a beast and walks. It's a system. It's people who run systems. And the problem is, throughout all of our university systems, a lot of our business and economics departments are not on board with, in other words, messages are going out to students being trained, greed is good. That's actually been said in some institutions. Well, how do you expect them to have a system operating well when the people who operate it and are responsible for it are being trained? And so I think if Ozanam here, that was what he was trying to do with the Sorbonne. He realized that you got to educate people about the problems that you're creating. I read a book a number of years ago, which I thought was excellent on this, called The Soul of Economies. And basically, what the argument there was, the person was saying, we complain about economies, but it's people who make economies. Otherwise, economies don't run. You can't have an economy without people. And it's the decisions that people make that create the problem. And I think Ozanam would say exactly the same thing. You know, he saw problems with the capitalism in his day. He saw problems with the socialism in his day, particularly the extremes. But what he saw was the problem was the extremes, people who were bringing these things in the wrong directions. And I think that's really where we could contribute a great deal. We could begin to make institutions realize, starting first with our own institutions, our own Vincentian institutions, but institutions of higher education, you know, number of business departments and things will have students going out and helping those in need and so forth. But the message of the overall presentation is still individual success and making money. If I was a dean of the college for a number of years and, you know, assistant dean. And if I had $1 for every student, and I worked at a really wonderful Catholic college, Providence College. If I had $1 for every student that told me their primary reason for going to college was to get rich, that's where we gotta change. If we're going to change the world, we got to really think of that system as well, I think, and not think of, you know, capitalism and as something out here all by itself with its own independent existence. It's people.
Vivian, did you have your hand up, dear?
Yes, I had one comment and question. My simple comment was, I didn't see Franciscus about the Daughters of Charity role in Indonesia. But my question follows up on Ray. For the most part, most of us in this room are at least post-Vatican II and have been around the block a few years. How is the Vincentian family, or how can the society become active and present on our college campuses, as well as, I don't know, if there's a mentorship program for secondary education levels? Because to have people who can change the system, we have to form young people to grow up to be adults who are sensitive to the needs of others, especially those who are poor. Not all of our Vincentian institutions have societies or junior league charity. Just a thought.
I don't know if that might be something more appropriate for someone in the audience who is in an educational setting, higher education, presumably.
Just to add on to that thought that I had shared with Jorge the other day, I actually think it's interesting that in the introduction of Renato, he was 15 when he joined the society. Yeah. This message of learning from the poor and looking at Jesus and the poor, I think should start in preschool. And when the kids begin to start religious education, you know, we hear a lot about Jesus in a lot of different ways when we're young, and the Hebrew scriptures, and it's all important. But this essential message of Vincentian, because you know, you can go at it two ways. You can try to change a mind of someone like myself, if I were in a capitalist or socialistic system or what have you, or you can grow the future. But the younger you start, people are formed by the time they get to college. They come there saying, this is what I want. And it you know, we make our communion when we're kids, we're baptized probably when we were infants. In other words, I think if we start that early, and the other, beyond that comment, I just wanted to highlight the good news I heard today was this collaborative effort, whether it was the Carmelites and the Vincentians sharing a seminary, whether it's this global 2.0 charity, whether it's this local but globalized network. And I just ask a question, is there a way, and maybe this also appeals to reaching the kids, the younger kids, is there a way to take this stuff and use video to share these positive stories? Because ultimately, you know, it's part of the good news. If we take the gospel and we bring it to life and just keep tying the two together, tying the words of Jesus with it played out, then I think that's what transforms society. You know, it's people who actually go out and do things, and then people become aware of people like Frederick Ozanam or St. Vincent de Paul or whomever, and others follow. So, and if we can start young, I think that's cool. Are you using video to share your message or talk about the 1,500, you know, missionaries or the homeless program?
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry. Just sister. Where is the Daughters of Charity in this, in the formation of the clergy in Indonesia? You know, the Daughters of Charity, they have been working hard for the, let's say, the poor people. But I would say that students also sometimes they come to their apostolates and learn something from them. And, you know, the Daughters of Charity, they contribute something important, especially for the human formation and the formation of being collaborator, as you mentioned before. Yeah, that's my.
We have several daughters here.
Oh yeah.
I really would like
should
to
have
put you
mentioned
on the
them.
spot
Yeah.
to talk about some of the things,
Yes,
particularly in terms of the youth and the programs that are underway in so many ways in terms of the interrelationship with, for instance, DePaul University at our facility.
Yeah.
Sister Kara, would you?
No, I just want to add something.
Okay.
Brief comment about the educate people. You don't necessarily build something else like another institution to do that. But I think that's a good idea, that educating people means that we need to collaborate more closely from different level, from different branches of the Vincentian families. Why not? The collaboration should be, let's say, somehow international, not just national, but also international. That would be very, very fruitful, I guess. That's my brief comment. Thank you.
You're off the hook, Sister Kara. I'm told that we are now a little bit over time. So, did you want to say something? You sure?
You can stand on the table and get people's attention.
We're now beyond time. Can we take any more questions or any more questions?
We take more questions. I'm leaving it to Bill. Yeah, I think we're behind time now. So we could come back in the afternoon. We'll have a little bit more time for questions later on.
We have that session at the end, right, where we kind of have.
That's right. Can I just mention a few things really quickly, if I remember what I was just going to say? One is Karen has an announcement before.
Mathieu, Rajon de la Renee, Mathieu couldn't be with us this morning, but will be back this afternoon. And his book, Amelie, he asked if I would make an announcement about it, that he'll be back with us this afternoon. If anyone wanted to get a copy and have him sign it, he would be happy to. And that Tim Williams, they're sold through National SSBP.
So you have some words to be paid for that?
Okay.
Not to give you a hard sales pitch.
Francine.
Hopefully you were inspired by
paid for
the
the
talk. They're 17. It's a hard
It's not.
Okay, and also anyone who's here today can join us for lunch in room 220 over at the Student Center. Just follow the crowd. It's on the second floor.
The question was raised whether or not Emily's book is for sale or is that?
You just said that.
Yes.
1750.
1750 for the book.
Thank you.
So, we would like to thank our panel and look forward to the session. this afternoon.
I was in Kiev to President of Poland, President of Franciscus. Wtedy we talking about capital. We're talking Bucha, place where a lot of Ukrainians.